Hello there. Welcome back. If you are a new listener, welcome to Dreamland Science, a place for curious minds to gather, relax, and learn. If you enjoy what you hear, perhaps you might consider subscribing. It helps others find their way here, too, one sleepy soul at a time. Tonight, there is nothing you need to do, nothing to remember, nothing to solve. If sleep finds you before the end, that is perfectly fine. In fact, that might be the best thing that happens. This evening, we are going to wander quietly through the science of why nature calms the human mind. From the invisible molecules that trees breathe into the air, to the ancient rhythms your body still remembers, like a river that always finds its way back to the sea. So let your body settle wherever it is. Let your thoughts soften, and let these gentle facts drift over you. On est biwan, like leaves falling from a great and patient tree. Your body has an ancient word for nature, and that word is home. In 1984, the biologist E. Underforde Wilson proposed something that many people had always quietly felt, but never named. He called it biophilia, the idea that human beings carry an inborn tendency to seek connection with the living world. It was not a preference learned through culture or education. It was deeper than that, woven into the architecture of the nervous system itself. Wilson suggested that this pull toward nature was shaped over millions of years of evolution, during which every ancestor you ever had lived among trees, rivers, open sky, and soil. The ones who felt at ease in green, sheltered landscapes were the ones who survived. And so that ease was passed along, generation after generation, until it became part of what it means to be human. Imagine a seed buried deep in the earth. It does not need instructions to reach toward the light. It simply knows. In much the same way, your body knows where it belongs. It has always known. And perhaps tonight, even without a forest around you, some part of you can feel that ancient knowing settling in, like roots finding their way quietly through soft, dark earth. Your brain recognizes a forest before you even know you are looking at one. Research by Roger Ulrich at Texas A&M University found that the human brain responds to natural scenes within roughly 100 milliseconds, faster than conscious thought can form. Before you have time to think the word tree, your visual cortex has already begun processing the green canopy, the dappled light, the organic shapes, and your nervous system has already started to shift. This response is not learned. Newborns show a preference for natural patterns over artificial ones. Evolutionary psychologists believe this rapid recognition evolved because identifying a safe, resource-rich environment quickly was a matter of survival. It is a little like the way a bird knows which direction is south without ever being taught. Something in the wiring simply responds quickly and without effort. And so your brain is already doing this, even now, responding to the idea of green leaves, of quiet paths, of light filtering through branches. It does not require a forest to begin softening. Sometimes, just the thought is enough. The color green asks less of your eyes than any other color. Green light falls near the center of the visible spectrum, at a wavelength of around 550 nanometers. Because of this, the cone cells in your retina process green with less effort than they process red. Blue, or violet. It is the easiest color for your eyes to see. Evolutionary biologists believe this sensitivity to green developed because our ancestors lived in landscapes dominated by vegetation. Being able to detect subtle differences in green, the pale green of new growth, the dark green of shade, the yellow-green of sunlight on leaves, helped early humans find food, water, and shelter. Today, you can distinguish more than 500 shades of green, more than any other color in the spectrum. Your eyes were built for this. Perhaps your jaw can soften now, releasing any tension it has been quietly holding. There is nothing to clench against, only the thought of green, spreading out before you like a meadow in the early morning. And in that green, your eyes can rest. They have been working so hard today. Perhaps they are ready to let go. Green landscapes quietly switch on the part of your nervous system that means rest. A review published by Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that viewing natural green environments activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery. This activation is automatic. You do not have to try. You do not have to know. It is happening. The parasympathetic system works by slowing the heart rate, lowering blood pressure, and reducing the production of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It is the opposite of the fight or flight response, and it is the state your body needs to enter before sleep becomes possible. Imagine a garden gate that opens on its own when it recognizes you. That is what green does to your nervous system. It recognizes it. It opens, and the quiet part of you walks through. Somewhere inside, that gate may be opening now, not because you forced it, but because something in you remembers what green means. A hospital patient who could see a tree healed faster than one who could not. In 1984, Roger Ulrich published a study that would change the way architects think about hospitals. He compared patients recovering from gallbladder surgery in rooms that were identical in every way, except one. Some rooms had windows facing a brick wall. Others had windows facing a small cluster of trees. The patients who could see the trees spent less time in the hospital, requested fewer painkillers, and had fewer negative notes in their medical records. The difference was not small. It was measurable, repeatable, and it could not be explained by any other variable. The trees did not do anything dramatic. They simply stood there, the way trees do, growing slowly, swaying gently, catching the light. It is as if the body, even when it is healing from surgery, responds to the presence of something living and green, like a fern unfurling quietly in the first light of morning. It reaches toward life without being asked. Even a photograph of a forest can soften your stress, though the real thing is gentler still. Studies reviewed by Jimenez and colleagues at Harvard found that even static images of natural landscapes can reduce physiological markers of stress. Heart rate slows, blood pressure dips, skin conductance, a measure of nervous tension, decreases. However, the effect of real nature is consistently stronger. The difference, researchers suggest, lies in the multisensory experience, the sound of wind, the scent of earth, the feel of air on skin, the subtle movement of leaves. A photograph captures only one sense. A forest engages all of them. It is a bit like the difference between reading about candlelight and sitting beside a real flame. Both are warm in their way, but only one flickers. Only one casts shadows that move. Only one fills the room with a soft, golden glow. And tonight, perhaps even the idea of a forest, the thought of tall trees and quiet air, is enough to begin the softening. Your mind is generous that way. The branching patterns of trees match the patterns your eyes prefer to rest upon. In 2006, the physicist Richard Taylor discovered that the fractal patterns found in nature, the branching of trees, the veins of a leaf, the shape of a coastline, fall within a specific mathematical range that the human visual system finds deeply pleasing. He called this range the aesthetic midpoint, complex enough to be interesting, but regular enough to feel restful. Taylor found that people consistently preferred fractals with a dimension between 1.3 and 1.5, precisely the range found in most trees, ferns, rivers, and clouds. Artificial environments rarely produce these patterns. If you would like, let your shoulders drop. They have been carrying so much today. Perhaps they can set that weight down now, the way a tree sets down its leaves in autumn, not because it has to, but because the season is right. The patterns in nature are the patterns your eyes were made to follow, and following them requires no effort at all, only a willingness to look, or even to imagine looking, and to let your gaze grow soft. You can see more shades of green than any other color, because your ancestors needed to. The human eye contains 3 types of cone cells, sensitive to red, green, and blue wavelengths. But the green-sensitive cones overlap significantly with both the red and blue cones, giving you an unusually fine ability to distinguish between subtle shades of green. This trait evolved in the forests and savannas where early humans lived. Being able to see the difference between the green of edible leaves and the green of poisonous ones, or between the green of fresh water and stagnant water, was a survival advantage. Today, you carry that ancient precision in your eyes wherever you go. Even into a world of concrete and glass, your retinas are still calibrated for the canopy. It is as if your eyes are always quietly searching for something green, and when they find it, or even when they imagine it, something in the circuitry settles. The way a bird settles onto a branch it has been flying toward all day. Your heartbeat begins to slow within minutes of stepping into a forest. Research reviewed by Dr. Ching Li, the founder of the forest medicine field in Japan, has consistently shown that heart rate decreases within the first few minutes of entering a natural forest environment. This effect has been measured across dozens of studies in participants of all ages, in forests across Japan, Europe, and North America. The slowing is not dramatic. It is gentle, a few beats per minute, a subtle unwinding, but it is real, and it happens without any conscious effort on the part of the person walking. Imagine a clock that has been ticking slightly too fast all day, and then, as the evening comes, the mechanism eases, and the ticking grows softer, slower, more patient. That is what a forest does to the rhythm inside your chest. And perhaps, even now, your own rhythm is beginning to ease, not because you are in a forest, but because some part of you is listening to one. The sound of running water speaks to the same part of your brain as safety. Researchers at Brighton and Sussex Medical School found that natural water sounds, streams, rain, gentle waves, activate the parasympathetic nervous system and shift the brain toward a state of outward-focused attention, a resting state associated with relaxation and daydreaming. From an evolutionary perspective, the sound of flowing water signaled proximity to a reliable resource, drinking water, which also meant food, shelter, and the ability to survive. Brains that found this sound soothing were brains that stayed near water, and those brains thrived. It is a little like the way a river speaks to the stones beneath it, not with words, but with a steady, patient sound that says, "Everything is as it should be." And tonight, if you listen closely, perhaps you can hear that sound somewhere in the distance of your imagination. A quiet stream, moving slowly, carrying nothing but moonlight. Birdsong lowers anxiety, even when heard through a city window. A study published by researchers at the Max Planck Institute found that listening to birdsong for just 6 minutes reduced feelings of anxiety and paranoia in participants. The effect held even when the birdsong was played through speakers in an urban environment. The researchers suggested that birdsong signals environmental safety throughout human evolution. The presence of singing birds meant the absence of predators. A forest filled with birdsong was a forest where nothing was wrong. Maybe the space between your eyebrows can ease now. Like a leaf settling on still water, there is nothing to watch for, nothing approaching, only the quiet presence of these words, one after another, like birds calling from a branch you cannot see. Imagine a morning in a garden where the only sound is the small, bright voice of a wren. It does not sing for you. It sings because the world is safe enough for singing. And in that safety, your mind can rest. Your species has lived outdoors for millions of years. Walls and roofs are the newcomers. Homo sapiens has existed for roughly 300,000 years. For nearly all of that time, humans lived entirely outdoors, sleeping under open skies, waking to birdsong, spending every hour of every day in direct contact with the natural world. Permanent indoor living is an invention of the last few thousand years, less than 2% of human history, and fully enclosed, climate-controlled buildings, the kind most people live in today, have existed for less than a century. Your body was engineered for the outdoors. Your skin was made for sunlight. Your lungs were made for forest air. Your circadian rhythm was calibrated to the rising and setting of the sun. It is like a fish that has been placed in a very comfortable aquarium. The water is clean, the temperature is right, and everything it needs is provided. But somewhere in its fins, it still remembers the river. Babies settle more quickly to the sound of a stream than to silence. Developmental studies have found that newborns and infants calm more rapidly when exposed to natural sounds, particularly running water, than when left in silence or exposed to white noise machines. Their heart rates slow, their crying diminishes, their bodies relax. Some researchers believe this response is connected to the sound environment of the womb, where the rhythmic whoosh of blood flow creates a constant, water-like backdrop. Natural water sounds may echo this prenatal experience. Others suggest it is simply biophilia at its earliest, a body that has not yet learned a single word already, knowing that the sound of water means all is well. Imagine a small stream moving through a mossy glade, so quiet you can barely hear it, just a gentle murmur over smooth stones. Even the youngest ears recognize it. Even the newest heart finds peace in it. The scent of rain on warm earth has a name. It is called petrichor, and it feels like remembering. Petrichor is produced when rain falls on dry soil and releases a compound called geosmin. Produced by bacteria in the earth, humans can detect geosmin at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion, making it one of the most sensitive scent responses we possess. Scientists believe this extraordinary sensitivity evolved because the smell of rain on Earth signaled the end of drought and the return of water, food, and growth. It was the smell of survival. Today, when you step outside after a rainstorm and breathe in that deep, earthy fragrance, your body is responding to something ancient. It is not nostalgia for a specific memory. It is older than that. It is the memory of the species itself. And perhaps tonight, somewhere in the quiet of your mind, you can almost smell it. The warm earth, the cool rain, the gentle release of something that has been waiting to be breathed. Your pupils grow smaller when you look at nature. It is a sign your mind is easing. In 1991, Roger Ulrich measured pupil dilation in participants viewing different types of scenes. Those who looked at natural landscapes showed smaller pupil diameters than those who looked at urban environments. Smaller pupils, in this context, indicate reduced cognitive effort and lower levels of physiological arousal. Your pupils are a window into the workload of your brain. When the mind is efforting, solving, analyzing, the pupils widen. When the mind is at ease, they narrow. Nature consistently produces the narrower response. Your hands might feel warm and heavy now, resting wherever they have found their place. Perhaps the fingers have gone still. There is nothing to hold on to tonight. It is as if nature tells your brain, you can stop looking so hard now. Everything here is safe. Everything here is known. And the brain listens, softens its gaze, and lets the world grow a little blurrier, a little gentler, a little more like a dream. Your skin stops conducting stress signals within 4 minutes of being near trees. Skin conductance is a measure of the electrical activity on the surface of your skin, driven by the tiny sweat glands that activate when you are stressed or alert. It is one of the most sensitive indicators of nervous system arousal. Ulrich found that after viewing natural scenes, skin conductance levels dropped to baseline within approximately 4 minutes, faster than recovery from viewing urban scenes or abstract images. The body, it seems, does not need much time to recognize nature, just a few minutes, and the signal changes. 4 minutes. That is all. Less time than it takes to boil water, less time than a song, and already your skin is saying, I am safe here. Imagine the warmth of late afternoon sun falling across your arms. Soft, golden, asking nothing, just warmth, just light, just the slow turning of the earth toward evening. Wind moving through leaves makes a sound at the same frequency as a resting heartbeat. Acoustic analysis of wind passing through deciduous tree canopies has revealed that the dominant frequencies fall between 1 and 4 Hz, the same range as a resting human heartbeat. This is not a coincidence noticed by poets. It is a measurable physical phenomenon. The frequency overlap may explain why the sound of rustling leaves is so universally soothing. Your auditory system may be detecting a rhythm that matches the rhythm of your own body at rest, and responding by entraining to it, slowing to match. It is like two clocks placed side by side on the same shelf. Over time, their pendulums begin to swing in unison, not because one decided to follow the other, but because resonance draws them together naturally. And perhaps, as you listen to these words, your own rhythm is beginning to match something quieter, something older, the rhythm of wind through a canopy you cannot see, but that your body has always known. Humans are drawn to water the way roots are drawn downward, without thinking. The geographer J. Appleton proposed in 1975 that humans have an innate preference for landscapes that include water. He called this part of his prospect refuge theory, the idea that we instinctively seek environments that offer both a wide view and access to resources. Water is the most fundamental resource, and throughout human history, settlements, trade routes, and civilizations have clustered around rivers, lakes, and coastlines. The pull toward water is not romantic. It is biological. Imagine standing at the edge of a still lake at dusk. The water reflects the sky. The air is cooler here, and something in your chest loosens. Not because you chose it, but because water has always meant life, and your body still remembers. Tonight, there is no lake, but perhaps the thought of one is enough. A quiet surface, reflecting nothing but the fading light. Surrounded by nature, your brain produces the same waves as light meditation. Researchers at Stanford University found that walking in natural environments increases the production of alpha brain waves, the same waves associated with a state of relaxed alertness, similar to light meditation or the moments just before sleep. Alpha waves are produced when the brain is awake but not efforting. They are the neural signature of calm attention, the state in which creativity, reflection, and rest become possible. Perhaps your feet are sinking into stillness now, grounded and quiet. You do not need to go anywhere. The ground beneath you, real or imagined, is steady. It is like the surface of a pond on a morning without wind. The water is not frozen. It is not empty. It is simply still, reflecting everything with perfect clarity. That is what your brain does in nature. It grows still, and in that stillness, it reflects the world more gently. A virtual forest can ease your stress, but a real one does it with a gentleness no screen can match. Studies on virtual reality nature have found that even simulated forests can lower cortisol levels and reduce self-reported anxiety. The brain responds to the visual cues of green, of depth, of organic patterns, even when it knows the environment is not real. However, every comparison study has found that real nature produces stronger, longer-lasting effects. The reasons are multisensory. The scent of earth and leaves, the feel of uneven ground, the temperature of forest air, the sound of wind and water. No simulation can replicate the full experience. It is a little like the difference between reading a letter from someone you love and sitting beside them in silence. Both are meaningful, but one carries a warmth that paper cannot hold. And tonight, though you are not in a forest, perhaps you are closer to one than you think. The mind is generous. It can build a forest from nothing but quiet words and willing stillness. Flowers make nearly every person smile with genuine warmth, not politeness, but joy. In 2005, Jeanette Haviland-Jones at Rutgers University conducted a series of experiments in which participants were unexpectedly given flowers. In every trial, 100% of the recipients smiled, and not the tight-lipped social smile of obligation, but the Duchenne smile, the kind that involves the muscles around the eyes and is associated with genuine positive emotion. No other gift tested, including fruit baskets and candles, produced this universal response. There is something about flowers, specifically their color, their symmetry, their fragrance, that speaks directly to the emotional brain. Imagine a single wildflower growing at the edge of a quiet path. It did not plant itself for you. It does not know you are there. And yet, something about its presence makes the world feel softer. Perhaps there is a flower like that, somewhere in your memory tonight. A small, bright thing that asked for nothing and gave everything. The Japanese have a word for sunlight filtering through leaves. It is called komorebi, and there is no translation, because the feeling needs no explanation. Komorebi describes the interplay of light and shadow when sunlight passes through a forest canopy. It is not just the visual effect, it is the feeling, the dappled warmth, the shifting patterns, the sense of being held inside something vast and gentle. English has no single word for this. French has no single word. Neither does German, or Hindi, or Arabic. And yet, every person who has ever stood beneath a tree on a sunny day has felt it. Notice how your chest rises and falls. A rhythm as old as the tide. You did not start it. You cannot stop it. It simply continues, faithfully, like light through leaves. Perhaps that is what komorebi really means. Not a visual phenomenon, but a reminder that some of the most beautiful things in the world happen without effort, without planning, without words. They simply are. Children who grow up near green spaces carry less anxiety into adulthood. Longitudinal studies tracking children from birth through early adulthood have found that those who grew up with access to parks, gardens, or natural areas showed lower rates of anxiety, depression, and emotional disturbance later in life. The effect persisted even after controlling for family income, education, and other social factors. Researchers believe that regular exposure to nature during childhood helps calibrate the stress response system, teaching the nervous system that the world contains places of safety and calm. This calibration stays with a person, quietly shaping how they respond to stress for decades. It is like a song learned in childhood. You may not remember learning it, but years later, in a quiet moment, the melody returns, whole and complete, as if it had been waiting all along. And perhaps the green spaces of your own childhood, however small, however distant, are still there inside you, still doing their gentle work. A forest cools your body gently, and that is the same cooling your body needs before sleep. Forest environments are typically 2 to 5 degrees cooler than surrounding urban areas, due to the shade of the canopy and the moisture released by leaves through transpiration. This natural cooling mirrors the thermoregulatory process that the human body uses to initiate sleep. Before sleep, your core body temperature drops by about 1 degree. This drop is a signal to the brain that it is time to produce melatonin and begin the transition to rest. Environments that gently assist this cooling make the transition easier. Imagine the air beneath a canopy of old oaks on a warm evening. The light is fading. The air is just a little cooler here. Just enough to notice. Just enough to feel your shoulders settle. That is what the forest offers. Not cold, not discomfort, just a gentle easing of temperature, like the earth itself exhaling at the end of a long day. A single houseplant in a room is enough to soften the stress of the person beside it. In a study by Tove Feld at the Agricultural University of Norway, office workers who had a single plant placed near their workstation reported fewer headaches, less fatigue, and lower levels of stress than those in identical offices without plants. The plant did not need to be large. It did not need to be exotic. It simply needed to be alive and green. The mechanism is likely a combination of factors: the visual presence of green, the subtle improvement in air quality, and the subconscious signal that something living and growing is nearby. Together, these small cues tell the nervous system, this is a good place to be. It is remarkable. Really, one small plant, one pot of soil and green leaves, and it is enough to change the chemistry of the room, like a single candle in a dark window. It does not illuminate the whole world, but it changes the feeling of being in it. And sometimes, that is all you need. And so we have wandered through the first quiet cluster of this evening's journey. 25 gentle truths about the language your body already speaks. The language of green, of water, of light through leaves. None of it needs to stay with you. It was only ever meant to drift. Trees breathe out invisible molecules that quietly calm the human body. Every tree, from the tallest cedar to the smallest sapling, releases volatile organic compounds into the air around it. These compounds are called phytoncides, a word that comes from the Greek for plant and the Latin for to kill, because their original purpose is to protect the tree from insects and bacteria. But something remarkable happens when a human being breathes these molecules in. The body responds not with alarm, but with calm. Cortisol levels drop. Heart rate slows. The nervous system shifts from its alert, vigilant state into something softer, something closer to rest. Dr. Ching Li, who founded the field of forest medicine in Japan, has spent decades studying this effect. The trees, he writes, are not trying to heal us. They are simply protecting themselves, and we happen to benefit from standing nearby. Imagine walking through a forest after a warm rain. The air is thick with something you cannot see, but can somehow feel. That is the forest breathing. And with every breath you take, it breathes into you a quiet kind of peace, like a tide that comes in without being called. In 1982, Japan gave the practice of walking slowly through a forest an official name. They called it Shinrin-yoku. The term translates roughly as forest bathing, and it does not refer to exercise or hiking. It is the practice of immersing yourself in the atmosphere of a forest, using all 5 senses, walking slowly, breathing deeply, touching bark, listening to birdsong, watching light move through leaves. The Japanese Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and fisheries introduced it as a national public health initiative, recognizing that the rapid urbanization of the 20th century had separated people from the natural environments their bodies were built for. Perhaps your jaw is even softer now, melting like morning frost on a window pane. There is nothing to hold in place, nothing to brace against. Shinrin-yoku asks nothing of the person practicing it. There is no technique to master, no goal to achieve, no distance to cover. You simply walk and breathe and let the forest do what forests have always done, which is to exist quietly and completely in a way that makes everything else feel a little less urgent. 3 days among trees can strengthen your immune guardians for an entire month. In a series of studies led by Dr. Ching Li, participants who spent 3 days and 2 nights in a forest showed a 50% increase in natural killer cell activity, the immune cells responsible for identifying and quietly removing damaged or infected cells from the body. Remarkably, this increase persisted for more than 30 days after the forest visit ended. The researchers controlled for exercise, diet, and sleep, and found that the forest environment itself was the primary factor. The phytoncides in the air appeared to be the mechanism, stimulating the body's own defenses in a way that no urban environment could replicate. It is as if the forest whispers to your immune system, "Remember your strength," and the body listens. And for weeks afterward, it carries that quiet strength with it, like a stone warmed by the sun, holding its heat long after the light has faded. The hinoki cypress breathes out a compound that lowers cortisol in anyone who walks beneath it. Hinoki, a species of cypress native to Japan, releases particularly high concentrations of phytoncides, including a compound called hinokitiol. In controlled laboratory studies, exposure to hinoki, essential oil, reduced salivary cortisol and increased feelings of calm in participants, even when the exposure lasted only minutes. In Japan, hinoki forests are among the most popular destinations for Shinrin-yoku. The wood itself has been used for centuries to build temples and shrines, not only for its durability, but for its fragrance, which the Japanese have long associated with purity and peace. Imagine a grove of ancient cypress trees, their bark smooth and pale, their branches reaching upward in slow, patient curves. The air here smells of something clean and warm, like sunlight on wood, and with each breath, the cortisol in your blood softens, as if the trees are gently asking your body to set down whatever it has been carrying. A single day in the forest gently strengthens the body's own defenses. Dr. Li's research found that even a single-day trip to a forest, without overnight stays, increased natural killer cell activity by 27% compared to a day spent in a city. The effect was smaller than a 3-day trip, but it was real, measurable, and significant. The body does not require a dramatic intervention to begin its quiet work of restoration. It simply needs to be in the right place. And a forest, it seems, is the right place. It is as if the forest reminded your body of its own quiet strength, the way a gentle word from a friend can remind you that you are more capable than you thought. Nothing was added. Nothing was changed. You were simply reminded of what was already there. Forest air holds more oxygen than city air. Your lungs soften into deeper breaths without trying. Photosynthesis, the process by which trees convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, means that forested areas consistently have higher oxygen concentrations than urban environments, typically 20 to 30% higher. The air is also cleaner, filtered by the canopy, humidified by transpiration, and free of the particulate matter that fills city streets. Your shoulders may be settling deeper now, like stones finding their place in a riverbed. They have been held up for so long. Perhaps they can rest here. In a forest, your lungs do not have to work as hard. Each breath draws in more oxygen with less effort, and the diaphragm naturally relaxes into a slower, deeper rhythm. This deeper breathing activates the vagus nerve, which in turn signals the heart to slow and the muscles to soften. It is the kind of breathing you do not have to think about. The forest does it for you, the way a river carries a leaf. Without asking and without effort, walking among trees increases serotonin, the quiet molecule of contentment. A narrative review, published in 2025 by Mao and colleagues, found that Shinrin-yoku significantly increases serum serotonin levels. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter associated with feelings of comfort, well-being, and emotional stability. Low serotonin is linked to depression, anxiety, and insomnia. The increase in serotonin appears to be driven by multiple factors: the phytoncides in the air, the gentle physical activity of walking, the visual stimulation of green and natural light, and the reduction of stress hormones that otherwise suppress serotonin production. Imagine a cup being slowly filled with warm water. That is what the forest does to your serotonin. Quietly, steadily, without fanfare. It does not overflow. It simply fills to the level where comfort becomes possible, where the edges of the day soften, and the mind begins to feel that perhaps tonight everything is enough. 2 hours in a forest lowers blood pressure as gently as light medicine. A meta-analysis of 20 clinical trials involving 732 participants found that blood pressure, both systolic and diastolic, was significantly lower during and after time spent in forest environments compared to urban environments. The effect was observed in healthy young adults, in elderly participants, and in individuals with existing hypertension. The mechanism involves the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which dilates blood vessels, slows the heart, and reduces the force with which blood is pumped through the body. The forest does not force this change. It invites it. It is like the way a river widens as it approaches the sea. The current does not stop. It simply spreads, slows, and becomes gentler. That is what happens to the pressure in your blood when you are surrounded by trees. It finds its own quiet level, without medicine, without effort, without being told. Pine forests release a compound called alpha-pinene that eases anxiety like a long exhale. Alpha-pinene is one of the most common terpenes found in coniferous forests. It gives pine needles their characteristic scent and has been shown in laboratory studies to reduce anxiety-like behavior in animal models and to decrease cortisol in human subjects. The compound is absorbed through the lungs and crosses the blood-brain barrier relatively quickly, where it appears to modulate the activity of neurotransmitter systems involved in anxiety and arousal. Imagine standing at the edge of a pine forest on a cool evening. The air carries a sharp, clean scent, the scent of something ancient and alive, and as you breathe it in, something inside loosens. not dramatically, not all at once, but the way a knot loosens when you stop pulling at it, gently, and from the inside. After rain, the forest floor releases tiny charged molecules that lift your mood. Negative ions are molecules that have gained an extra electron, giving them a slight negative charge. They are produced in abundance near waterfalls, after rainstorms, and in forested areas where moisture and organic matter interact with the air. Your shoulders may be settling deeper now, like stones finding their place in a riverbed. The weight of the day is not yours to carry through the night. Research has associated negative ion exposure with reduced depression scores and improved subjective well-being. While the exact mechanism is still being studied, some researchers believe negative ions increase the flow of oxygen to the brain and promote the release of serotonin. Imagine the forest floor after a summer rain. The soil is dark and wet. The moss is bright, and the air has a quality that is difficult to describe but easy to feel. A freshness, a lightness, as if the rain washed the air itself clean and left behind only what was good. Forest bathing lowers adrenaline by nearly a third, as if the trees are whispering your body to stand down. Dr. Lee measured urinary adrenaline levels in participants before and after forest bathing trips. After 2 nights in a forest, adrenaline levels dropped by nearly 30%. The reduction was sustained for several days after the participants returned to their urban environments. Adrenaline is the hormone of urgency, of readiness, of fight or flight. It is useful in moments of danger, but when it remains elevated for hours, days, or weeks, it erodes sleep, raises blood pressure, and keeps the body locked in a state of vigilance it was never meant to sustain. The forest does not lecture the body about relaxing. It does not give instructions. It simply creates the conditions under which adrenaline is no longer needed. And the body, recognizing this, quietly stands down, the way a guard lowers a lantern when the watch is finally over. In Japan, 62 trails are officially certified as places of healing. The Japanese Society of Forest Medicine has designated 62 forest therapy bases across the country, each one scientifically verified to produce measurable health benefits. These trails are not ordinary hiking paths. They are specifically selected for their canopy density, phytoncide concentration, air quality, and acoustic environment. Visitors to these trails are guided by certified forest therapy practitioners who lead them through slow, sensory-rich walks designed to maximize the calming effects of the forest. It is a remarkable thing, really, that a country known for its technological innovation has invested so deeply in something as quiet and as old as walking among trees, as if to say, we have built everything the modern world could offer, and still, the forest is the best medicine we know. Even the smallest moss and lichen breathe out their own quiet protection. Phytoncides are not exclusive to large trees. Mosses, lichens, ferns, and even some grasses produce their own volatile compounds, contributing to the complex chemical atmosphere of a forest. The forest floor, often overlooked, is a rich source of these airborne molecules. The space behind your eyes might feel wider now, open and quiet as a meadow at dawn. There is room here, room to breathe, room to rest. Imagine a patch of moss growing on the north side of a stump. It is so small, you might not notice it, but it is alive and it is breathing. and the molecules it releases into the air are part of the same gentle chemistry that makes the whole forest feel like a place where your body can let go. Even the smallest things are quietly protecting you. After time among trees, people report feeling genuinely less tired, as if the forest gave back what the city took. Research by Mao and colleagues found that forest bathing significantly improved POMS fatigue scores, a standardized measure of how tired, worn out, and sluggish a person feels. Participants reported not just less stress, but less exhaustion, a distinction that matters. Perhaps your fingers have gone still. Warm as sunlit earth, there is nothing to type, nothing to scroll, nothing to hold, just stillness. Stress and fatigue are not the same thing. You can reduce stress and still feel depleted. But the forest appears to address both, replenishing not just calm, but energy. Not just quiet, but vitality. It is as if the city withdraws a little from you each day, and the forest, without being asked, puts it back. Like a well that refills slowly from an underground spring. You cannot see the water rising, but it is there, patient and steady, waiting for you to draw from it again. Cedar wood carries a trace of the forest's calming breath, even indoors. Studies have found that exposure to cedar wood essential oil, which contains many of the same phytoncides found in living cedar forests, reduces sympathetic nervous activity and increases parasympathetic tone. Heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, the body moves toward rest. This is why cedar has been used for centuries to line closets, build chests, and construct the interiors of sacred spaces. The fragrance is not merely pleasant, it carries a biological message, one that the human nervous system recognizes and responds to. Imagine a small cedar box, old and well-worn, sitting on a shelf in a quiet room. When you open it, the scent rises, warm and woody, and for a moment, you are somewhere else entirely. Somewhere with tall trees and soft earth, and the sound of wind through branches. A piece of the forest, kept safe indoors, still doing its gentle work. 20 minutes among trees is enough for your stress hormones to begin their quiet retreat. A systematic review by Paredes Lopez and colleagues examined 8 randomized controlled trials of nature exposure therapies. In 2 of the studies that measured cortisol directly, both found significant reductions after as little as 20 minutes of forest exposure. 20 minutes. That is less than a single episode of a television show. Less than the time it takes to prepare dinner, and yet it is enough for the chemistry of your blood to begin shifting, for the cortisol that has been circulating since morning to begin its slow, quiet withdrawal. It is as if the forest has a threshold, a gentle doorway, and once you step through it, the body begins to soften. You do not have to stay for hours. You do not have to go deep into the wilderness. You simply have to be there and let the trees do what they have always done. In a forest, your fight or flight system grows quieter and your rest and digest system wakes. Dr. Lee's research consistently showed that forest environments reduce sympathetic nervous system activity, the branch responsible for alertness, tension, and the fight-or-flight response, while simultaneously increasing parasympathetic nervous system activity, the branch responsible for rest, recovery, and digestion. This shift is not a choice. It is not something you decide to do. It happens automatically, driven by the sensory input of the forest, the green light, the organic sounds, the phytoncides, the cool air, the absence of urban stimulation. Your feet might feel distant now, quiet and grounded as tree roots. They have carried you through the whole day. Perhaps they can be still. It is like a seesaw that has been tilted too far to one side all day. And then, quietly, weight shifts, and the other side begins to rise. That is what the forest does to your nervous system. It rebalances what the day put out of balance. Gently, and without asking, there is a bacterium in forest soil that, when breathed in, gently increases your serotonin. Mycobacterium vaccae is a harmless bacterium found in rich, organic soil, particularly in forests and gardens. When mice were exposed to this bacterium, researchers at the University of Bristol found increased serotonin production in the brain and reduced anxiety-like behavior. Perhaps your fingers have gone still, warm as sunlit earth. There is nothing to reach for tonight. Human studies are still in early stages, but the finding suggests that the simple act of being near soil, of breathing in the microscopic life of the earth, may have a direct effect on brain chemistry. Gardeners have long reported that working with soil improves their mood. Science is beginning to understand why. It is a quiet thought. The idea that the earth beneath your feet contains tiny organisms that can make you feel better simply by existing, as if the soil itself has been composing a gentle lullaby, too small to hear, but not too small to feel. People who walk through forests describe themselves as refreshed and comfortable, words rarely used after a city walk. In multiple studies conducted by Dr. Lee and his colleagues, participants who walked through forest environments scored significantly higher on feelings of being refreshed, comfortable, and at ease compared to those who walked the same distance through urban environments. The contrast was consistent across studies, across seasons, and across participant demographics. The forest walk and the city walk involved the same physical effort, but the subjective experience was profoundly different. It is as if the forest adds something that the city subtracts. Not energy, exactly, but a quality of ease, a feeling that the body and mind are in the right place, doing the right thing, at the right pace, comfortable, refreshed. Words that sound so simple, but that so many people have gone so long without feeling. The forest is most healing in summer and after rain, when it is most alive. Phytoncide concentrations in forest air are highest during the warm months and spike significantly after rainfall. This is because heat and moisture increase the rate at which trees release volatile compounds, and rain releases additional molecules from the soil and the forest floor. A summer forest after a rainstorm is praconsempelie. In biochemical terms, the most therapeutically potent natural environment on Earth. Imagine that forest now. The rain has just stopped. The canopy drips. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth and green leaves. Everything is glistening, and with every breath, you are taking in the forest at its most generous, its most alive, its most willing to share what it has. And perhaps, even in the quiet of this room, some part of you can feel that generosity reaching toward you, like the warmth of sunlight through a window after a long grey day. Forest bathing softens hostility, lifts depression, and eases tension on every scale researchers have measured. The profile of mood states, known as POMS, is a standardized psychological assessment that measures 6 dimensions of mood tension: depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, and vigor. Studies of Shinrin-yoku have found improvements across every negative dimension and increases in vigor. The effect is not selective. The forest does not address only anxiety, or only sadness, or only tension. It addresses all of them, simultaneously, as if the problem was never any single emotion, but rather the environment in which those emotions were being felt. It is like opening a window in a room that has been closed too long. You do not fix the room. You simply let the air in, and the air does the rest. A quiet walk through a bamboo grove lowers cortisol as surely as the bamboo sways in the wind. Studies conducted in bamboo forests in Asia have found significant reductions in salivary cortisol after walks of just 15 to 20 minutes. Bamboo groves, with their tall, slender stalks and the distinctive sound of wind passing through them, appear to be particularly effective environments for stress reduction. Your feet might feel distant now, quiet and grounded as tree roots beneath the soil. They have done their work for today. The sound of bamboo in the wind is unlike any other natural sound. It is hollow, rhythmic, and strangely musical, like a conversation in a language you almost understand. Researchers believe this unique acoustic quality may contribute to the calming effect, engaging the auditory system in a way that promotes relaxation without demanding attention. Imagine a bamboo grove at dusk. The light is golden, the stalks sway gently, and the sound they make is so soft, so patient, that it seems to be saying nothing more than, "Everything is as it should be." The vagus nerve, the longest nerve in your body, responds to forests by slowing your heart. The vagus nerve runs from the brainstem down through the neck, chest, and abdomen, connecting the brain to the heart, lungs, and digestive system. It is the primary conduit of the parasympathetic nervous system, and when it is activated, it slows the heart rate, deepens breathing, and promotes a state of calm restoration. Forest environments have been shown to increase vagal tone, the measure of how active and responsive the vagus nerve is. Higher vagal tone is associated with better emotional regulation, lower inflammation, and improved sleep quality. Imagine a long, quiet nerve running through the center of your body, like a river running through a valley. When the forest speaks, this nerve listens, and when it listens, the whole valley grows still. In a forest, your heart learns to beat with more variability, a sign it is shifting into recovery. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is the variation in time between consecutive heartbeats. Contrary to what you might expect, a healthy heart does not beat like a metronome. It varies, subtly, from beat to beat. And this variability is a sign of a nervous system that is flexible, adaptive, and capable of recovery. Studies have found that HRV increases in forest environments, indicating a shift from sympathetic dominance, the state of alert readiness, to parasympathetic dominance, the state of rest and repair. It is like the difference between a river that flows in a straight, rigid channel, and one that meanders gently through a meadow. The meandering river is the healthier one. It moves with more freedom, more flexibility, more grace. And in a forest, your heart begins to meander. It finds its own rhythm, its own gentle variability, its own quiet way home. The oldest trees release the most healing compounds, as if age has taught them generosity. Research has shown that old-growth forests contain significantly higher concentrations of phytoncides than younger forests. The larger, older trees produce more volatile compounds, and the accumulated organic matter on the forest floor adds its own chemical richness to the air. An old-growth forest is not just bigger than a young one. It is biochemically different. Feuchter, more complex, more generous with the molecules it releases into the air. Imagine a tree that has stood for 500 years. It has weathered storms, droughts, fires, and the slow turning of centuries. And still, it stains, and still, it breathes its quiet chemistry into the air, asking nothing in return. There is something deeply comforting about that. The idea that the oldest living things on Earth are also the most generous. That age, in nature, does not hoard, it gives. And so the second cluster of this evening's journey comes to a gentle, close 25 quiet truths about what the forest breathes into you. The invisible gifts of phytoncides, serotonin, and calm. Let them settle where they will. There is no test. There is no quiz. There is only the quiet knowledge that somewhere, right now, a forest is breathing. And if you listen closely, perhaps you can hear it. There is a theory that nature restores your attention simply by asking nothing of it. In 1995, the psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan at the University of Michigan proposed what they called attention restoration theory. The idea is elegant in its simplicity. Your capacity for focused attention is limited, like a muscle that fatigues with use. Cities, screens, and deadlines drain it. Nature replenishes it. The key, the Kaplans argued, is that nature engages a different kind of attention, one they called soft fascination. Watching clouds drift, listening to a stream, feeling wind on your face. These experiences hold your awareness gently, without demanding concentration. And in that gentle holding, the tired parts of your mind are free to rest. Your breathing may have deepened now, slow and steady as the tide coming in. You did not ask it to change. It simply responded to the quiet. It is like the difference between holding something tightly in your fist and letting it rest in an open palm. The object is the same, but the effort is entirely different. Nature is the open palm. It holds your attention without gripping it. And in that openness, restoration begins. Watching clouds or water move creates a state called soft fascination. Rest without emptiness. Soft fascination is the Kaplan's term for the kind of attention that nature invites. It is not the sharp, directed focus you use when reading a spreadsheet or navigating traffic. It is not the blank emptiness of boredom. It is something in between, a state of gentle engagement, where the mind is occupied just enough to stop wandering into worry, but not so much that it has to work. Clouds, rivers, leaves in the wind, flames in a fireplace. These are all sources of soft fascination. They change constantly, but slowly. They hold the eye without demanding the brain. Researchers have found that this state is associated with reduced activity in the default mode network, the brain's self-referential processing system, the system that, left unchecked, produces rumination, worry, and the replaying of regret. Imagine watching a single cloud dissolve slowly into a clear blue sky. There is nothing to solve in that image, nothing to remember, only the quiet pleasure of watching something change, without needing it to mean anything at all. 20 minutes in a park lowers your cortisol. No walking required, no effort needed. A study published in Frontiers in Psychology by Mary Carroll Hunter and colleagues at the University of Michigan found that spending just 20 minutes in a natural setting, even sitting still on a bench, produced significant reductions in salivary cortisol. The researchers called it a nature pill. The most effective duration was between 20 and 30 minutes. Beyond that, cortisol continued to drop, but at a slower rate. The findings suggest that the body begins its stress recovery almost immediately upon entering a natural environment, and that the first 20 minutes are the most potent. You did not have to hike. You did not have to meditate. You simply had to be there, in a place where green things grow and the air moves freely. It is like sitting beside a fire on a cold night. You do not have to do anything to feel warm. The warmth comes to you, and 20 minutes is all it takes for the cold to begin to lift. 2 hours a week in nature is the gentle threshold where health begins to deepen. A landmark study by Matthew White and colleagues, published in 2019, and drawing on data from nearly 20,000 people in the United Kingdom, found that spending at least 120 minutes per week in nature was associated with significantly better self-reported health and well-being. Below that threshold, the benefits were present, but modest. At or above it, the association became strong and consistent. It did not matter whether the time was spent in one long visit or several shorter ones. The total mattered more than the frequency. 2 hours a week. That is less than 2% of your waking hours. A small offering of time. And in return, the body and mind receive something that no amount of indoor activity can provide. Perhaps there is a gentle warmth spreading through your center now. A quiet recognition that the body has always known what it needs. It just needs to be given the chance to find it. In the largest review ever conducted, 98% of studies found that nature improves mental health. 0% found harm. A scoping review, published in 2022 by Rojas Rueda and colleagues, examined hundreds of studies on the relationship between nature exposure and human health. Of the studies that focused on mental health, 98% reported positive effects. Not a single study found that nature made mental health worse. Perhaps there is a gentle warmth spreading through your center now. A quiet knowing that some things in the world are simply reliably good. The review covered studies from dozens of countries, spanning decades of research, using a wide range of methodologies. The consistency of the finding is striking. Nature is not a treatment that works for some people and not others. It appears to work for nearly everyone, in nearly every context, in nearly every study that has ever looked. It is the kind of finding that makes you wonder not why nature helps, but why we ever thought we could do without it. Like discovering that breathing helps the lungs, the answer was always obvious. We just needed the data to remind us. A walk in nature quiets rumination, the endless replaying of worries that keeps you awake. Researchers at Stanford University, led by Gregory Bratman, asked participants to take a 50-minute walk, either through a natural area or along a busy road. Those who walked in nature showed significant reductions in rumination, the repetitive, self-focused negative thinking that is a hallmark of anxiety and depression, and one of the primary obstacles to sleep. The urban walkers showed no such reduction, even though they walked the same distance and for the same duration. Rumination is the mind's way of trying to solve a problem that has no solution, at least not tonight. It replays the same thoughts, the same worries, the same regrets, over and over, like a record skipping in a groove. Nature breaks the skip, not by solving the problem, but by gently redirecting the mind's attention outward, toward leaves, toward light, toward the sound of something that is not your own thinking. And in that redirection, the loop loosens, and the mind begins to quiet. The part of your brain that loops anxious thoughts grows quieter after time among trees. Bratman's research used brain imaging to show that the subgenual prefrontal cortex, a region associated with repetitive, negative, self-referential thought, showed decreased activity after participants walked in a natural setting. The urban walkers showed no such change. The subgenual prefrontal cortex is, in a sense, the brain's worry center. When it is overactive, the mind circles, replaying conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, rehearsing failures. After a walk in nature, this region grows quieter, like a conversation fading in another room. Perhaps your jaw may have forgotten it was ever tense, soft as a petal resting on still water. You do not have to silence your thoughts by force. Nature does it by invitation, by offering the mind something else to attend to, something that asks nothing in return. People who move to greener neighborhoods feel better within a year, and the feeling lasts for years. A longitudinal study in the United Kingdom by Ian Alcock and colleagues tracked individuals who relocated to areas with varying levels of green space. Those who moved to greener neighborhoods showed measurable improvements in mental health within the first year, and these improvements persisted for at least 3 years after the move. The researchers controlled for income, employment, marital status, and physical health. The green space itself appeared to be the factor that mattered. It is as if the body keeps a quiet ledger of the green it encounters. And over time, the balance shifts. More green, less distress, more trees, more ease. The arithmetic is simple. The effect is real. Looking at a real tree changes the blood flow in your brain. A photograph of the same tree does not. Researchers studying Japanese female students found that viewing a real tree increased oxygenated hemoglobin in the prefrontal cortex, a sign of healthy activation in the brain region, responsible for emotional regulation and calm decision-making. When the same participants viewed a photograph of the same tree, no such change occurred. Perhaps your jaw is so soft now you barely notice it, smooth as moonlight on still water. The finding suggests that the brain distinguishes between real nature and representations of nature at a physiological level, something about the three-dimensional, living presence of a tree, its movement, its depth, its subtle changes in light, activates neural pathways that a flat image cannot reach. It is a reminder that your brain was built for the real world, not for screens, and when it encounters the real thing, something in its circuitry comes alive, softly, like a lamp being turned on in a room that had been dark. Exercise done outdoors lifts your mood more than the very same exercise done indoors. Researchers have consistently found that physical activity performed in natural settings, sometimes called green exercise, produces greater improvements in mood, self-esteem, and emotional well-being than the same activity performed indoors. The exercise is the same, the effort is the same, but the environment changes the outcome. The reasons are multisensory. Outdoor exercise involves natural light, fresh air, varying terrain, and the visual presence of green. Together, these inputs create a richer experience for the brain, one that engages the parasympathetic system and reduces the stress hormones that indoor exercise does not fully address. It is like the difference between eating a meal at a table and eating the same meal beside an open window overlooking a garden. The food is identical, but the experience is not. Nature sounds in hospital rooms help patients concentrate and feel less agitated. Clinical studies have found that playing natural soundscapes, birdsong, flowing water, rustling leaves, in hospital rooms, reduces patient agitation, improves concentration, and decreases the need for sedative medication. The sounds do not mask the hospital environment entirely. They simply add a layer of acoustic comfort that the brain recognizes as safe. Imagine lying in a quiet room, and from somewhere, the sound of a distant stream begins. It does not demand your attention. It does not require you to listen. It simply fills the space with something soft, something the body recognizes, something that says, even here, you are not far from the natural world. When a neglected lot in Philadelphia was planted with trees, depression in the surrounding neighborhood softened. A randomized controlled trial led by Eugenia South at the University of Pennsylvania took vacant, trash-strewn lots in low-income neighborhoods and randomly assigned them to one of three conditions: full greening with trees and grass, partial cleaning, or no intervention. Residents living near the fully greened lots reported significantly lower levels of depression, poor mental health, and feelings of worthlessness compared to those near the untreated lots. The effect was strongest in neighborhoods with the highest poverty rates. It is a powerful finding. Not a pill, not a therapy session, just trees and grass, planted in a place where there had been none. And the people nearby felt the difference. In their mood, in their sense of worth, in their willingness to believe that things could be a little better. The feeling of awe, looking at a mountain, an ancient tree, a wide sky, slows your sense of time and eases stress. Researchers studying the emotion of awe have found that it produces a measurable shift in time perception, making people feel as though they have more time, not less. This expanded sense of time is associated with reduced stress, increased patience, and greater life satisfaction. If your shoulders have crept upward, perhaps they can settle once more, like snow coming to rest on a quiet hillside. Awe is most commonly triggered by vast natural scenes. Mountains, oceans, starlit skies, ancient forests. It is the feeling of being small in the presence of something immense. And rather than being frightening, It is deeply calming, as if the vastness of the world puts the smallness of your worries into perspective. Imagine standing at the base of a very old tree, its trunk wider than your arms could reach. The canopy disappears above you, and for a moment, time slows, and you feel something that has no name, but that every human has felt. A quiet recognition that you are part of something much larger than yourself. Office workers who can see a tree from their desk report fewer headaches and less mental fatigue. Workplace studies have found that employees with a view of natural elements from their workstation, even a single tree or a small patch of green, report 23% fewer headaches and 25% less mental fatigue than those whose windows face buildings, walls, or parking lots. The effect is not dramatic enough to notice in a single day, but over weeks and months. It accumulates. The body keeps count of the green it sees, even when the conscious mind does not. It is like the quiet work of rain on a garden. One drop does nothing visible, but day after day, the soil softens, the roots deepen, and something begins to grow. Water, oceans, rivers, lakes, calms the mind as deeply as any forest, perhaps even deeper. Research on blue spaces, environments dominated by water, has found that proximity to oceans, rivers, and lakes produces calming effects that are at least equal to, and in some studies greater than, those of green spaces. Coastal residents report higher levels of well-being and lower levels of psychological distress. The mechanisms are similar to those of green space: visual complexity, natural sound, negative ions, and the engagement of soft fascination. But water adds additional elements: the rhythmic sound of waves, the reflective quality of the surface, and the vast, open horizon. Imagine standing at the edge of the sea at dusk. The waves come in slowly. The horizon stretches farther than your eyes can follow, and something in your chest, something that has been tight all day, begins to open. A child with a restless mind can find focus after 20 minutes in a park. Researchers Andrea Faber-Taylor and Francis Kuo at the University of Illinois found that children diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder showed significantly improved concentration after a 20-minute walk in a park, compared to walks of the same duration in downtown or residential settings. The effect was comparable to the improvement seen with standard medication, leading the researchers to describe nature exposure as a potential supplement to existing treatments. It is a gentle finding, not a cure, not a replacement, but a reminder that the restless mind, the mind that cannot settle, the mind that jumps from thought to thought, sometimes simply needs a different environment. And a park, with its green and its quiet and its soft fascination, is often enough. Gardening lowers cortisol more than reading indoors. The combination of soil, sunlight, and green is uniquely gentle. A study published in the Journal of Health Psychology found that participants who gardened for 30 minutes showed significantly lower cortisol levels than those who read indoors for the same duration. Both activities were calming, but gardening was more so. The muscles across your forehead might dissolve now, smooth as still water, reflecting a cloudless sky. The researchers attributed the difference to the multisensory nature of gardening. The feel of soil, the warmth of sunlight, the visual presence of green, and the gentle physical activity involved, together, these inputs create a rich, calming experience that indoor activities, however pleasant, cannot fully replicate. It is as if the hands, when they touch the earth, send a message to the brain that says, "You are in the right place." And the brain, recognizing the truth of that message, begins to let go. After 3 days in the wilderness, something shifts in the mind. Researchers call it the 3-day effect. Wilderness advocates and researchers have observed that after approximately 72 hours of continuous immersion in nature, people report a profound shift in mental state, a deepening of calm, a heightening of awareness, a sense of clarity that was not present on the first day. David Strayer, a cognitive neuroscientist at the University of Utah, has studied this phenomenon and believes it reflects the time needed for the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive control center, to fully disengage from the demands of modern life and shift into a more restful, creative mode. 3 days. That is how long the mind needs to truly let go of the city and find its way back to something older, something quieter, something that was always there but was hidden beneath the noise. After resting among trees, your working memory improves. Your mind grows sharper by first growing still. Bratman and colleagues at Stanford found that participants who walked in natural settings showed improved performance on working memory tasks compared to those who walked in urban environments. The improvement was not dramatic, but it was consistent and statistically significant. The finding suggests that nature does not dull the mind. It sharpens it, but only after first allowing it to rest. The sharpening comes not from effort, but from the absence of effort, from the restoration of cognitive resources that the city had depleted. It is like a blade that becomes sharper not by being used more, but by being laid down and carefully honed. The resting is part of the sharpening, and nature provides the whetstone. People who live within a short walk of green space carry less anxiety and less sadness. A review by the World Health Organization found that people living within 300 meters of green space report significantly lower levels of anxiety and depression. The effect is consistent across age groups, income levels, and cultural contexts. Your palms might be open and warm now, receiving the quiet of this moment. There is nothing to grasp, nothing to hold, just the warmth of stillness. 300 meters. That is a 5-minute walk, and the difference it makes over months and years is not trivial. The proximity of green, even if you do not walk through it every day, creates a kind of ambient benefit, a background hum of nature that the body detects and responds to, even through a window. Watching a river flow for 10 minutes eases stress more than guided meditation. A comparative study found that participants who sat beside a flowing river for 10 minutes showed greater reductions in self-reported stress than those who completed a 10-minute guided meditation session. Both groups improved, but the river group improved more. The finding surprised the researchers, who had expected meditation, a well-established stress reduction technique, to outperform passive nature exposure. But the river, it seems, offers something that even a skilled meditation guide cannot: the effortless engagement of soft fascination, the rhythmic sound of moving water, and the deep evolutionary comfort of being near a source of life. Imagine a river at twilight, the water dark and smooth, catching the last light of the day. You do not have to watch it. You do not have to think about it. It simply flows, and in its flowing, it carries something away from you, something heavy, something you did not know you were holding. In nature, the blue of the sky and the green of the leaves soothe the same pathways in your brain. Neuroscience research has found that the colors blue and green, when encountered in natural settings, activate overlapping neural pathways associated with calm and restoration. The brain does not process natural blue and natural green as competing signals. It processes them as complementary, as two aspects of the same message. You are in a safe, living environment. Imagine a meadow under a summer sky. The green of the grass and the blue of the sky meet at the horizon, and the line between them is soft, gentle, almost invisible. That is how the brain experiences them, not as separate colors, but as a single, unified signal of peace. Elderly people who walk in gardens find their words more easily and remember more clearly. Geriatric studies have found that older adults who regularly walk in garden environments show improved verbal fluency and short-term memory compared to those who walk in indoor or urban settings. The improvements are modest but consistent, and they suggest that the aging brain, like the young brain, benefits from the restorative properties of nature. It is as if the garden gently polishes the pathways that time has worn, not restoring them to what they were, but keeping them open, keeping them clear, keeping the words and memories flowing a little more easily. In Scotland, Japan, and South Korea, doctors now write prescriptions for time in nature. Nature prescriptions are now part of formal healthcare systems in at least 3 countries. In Scotland, doctors can prescribe walks in nature to patients with anxiety, depression, and heart disease. In Japan, Shinrin-yoku is covered by some health insurance plans. In South Korea, forest healing programs are funded by the national government. These are not alternative treatments. They are mainstream medicine, supported by decades of evidence, administered by licensed professionals, and covered by national health systems. It is a remarkable acknowledgement. The medical establishment, built on pharmaceuticals and procedures, is saying, in its own careful, evidence-based way, that sometimes the best medicine is not medicine at all. Sometimes it is simply a walk among trees. Even imagining a forest, the scent of pine, the sound of a stream, activates the part of you that rests. Guided imagery studies have found that simply imagining a natural scene, a forest, a beach, a mountain meadow, activates the parasympathetic nervous system and reduces markers of physiological stress. Heart rate slows, cortisol dips. The body responds to the imagined forest almost as it would to a real one. Perhaps your whole body feels heavier now, sinking gently, like leaves settling on a forest floor. The weight is not a burden. It is the weight of letting go. The mind does not always need reality to begin its work of restoration. Sometimes, all it needs is permission and a quiet voice describing a place where the air is clean. The trees are tall, and the only sound is the wind moving slowly through a canopy of green. And so the third cluster of this evening's journey comes to rest. 25 quiet truths about how nature restores the mind, not by adding anything, but by gently removing what was never meant to be there. The noise, the tension, the endless efforting. Nature takes them. On-e-bu-one, the way a river takes fallen leaves and carries them quietly away. People who live near trees sleep nearly 20 minutes longer each night. A study using data from the United States Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System found that adults living in areas with greater access to natural amenities, green space, lakes, and coastlines, reported significantly less insufficient sleep. The association was particularly strong for men and for adults over the age of 65. The researchers at the University of Illinois suggested that the mechanism is multifactorial. Green space reduces noise pollution, filters air pollutants, lowers ambient temperatures, and provides opportunities for physical activity and stress reduction, all of which contribute to better sleep. 20 minutes. That is the difference a few trees can make. Not a sleep clinic, not a prescription, just the quiet presence of green, growing near the place where you lay your head. Living among green space lowers your risk of short sleep by 16%. A study of over 250,000 adults in Australia found that people living in neighborhoods with the highest levels of green space had a 16% lower risk of reporting short sleep duration compared to those in least green neighborhoods. The finding held after adjusting for age, sex, income, education, and physical activity. The green space itself appeared to be the factor. 16%. It is not a dramatic number, but across a lifetime of nights, it adds up to something significant. Hundreds of hours of sleep that the body received simply because trees were growing nearby. Morning sunlight gently resets the clock inside you that decides when to sleep. Your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs your sleep-wake cycle, is calibrated primarily by light, exposure to bright, natural light in the morning, particularly the blue-enriched light of early sunshine, suppresses melatonin production and signals the brain that it is time to be awake. This morning signal is what makes the evening signal possible. Without a strong wake signal in the morning, the sleep signal at night is weaker, less defined, less compelling. Imagine a pendulum that swings wide during the day so that it can swing just as wide at night. Morning sunlight is the push that starts the swing, and the wider the swing, the deeper the sleep that follows. The sound of rain activates theta waves in your brain, the same waves that carry you into sleep. Electroencephalography studies have found that the sound of rain increases the production of theta brain waves, which oscillate between 4 and 8 Hz. Theta waves are the dominant brainwave pattern during the transition from wakefulness to sleep, and they are associated with deep relaxation, drowsiness, and the early stages of dreaming. Your heart beats its own quiet rhythm now, steady as rain on a roof. You did not set this pace. It found its own way. The rhythmic, unpredictable, yet consistent nature of rainfall appears to be ideally suited to engaging the brain's theta production. It is complex enough to hold soft fascination, but predictable enough to not demand attention. Imagine lying in a small cabin, and outside, the rain is falling. Not a storm, just a steady, gentle rain. The kind that makes the world feel smaller and safer and closer to sleep. Ocean waves slow your breathing and your heartbeat within 7 quiet minutes. Research by Rachel Buxton and colleagues found that natural water sounds, particularly ocean waves, produced measurable reductions in heart rate and respiratory rate within 7 minutes of exposure. The effect was stronger than that of birdsong or wind sounds, suggesting that the rhythmic, low-frequency pattern of waves is particularly effective at entraining the body's own rhythms. 7 minutes. That is all the ocean needs to begin its work. And the work is not dramatic. It is simply a slowing, a softening, a gentle alignment of your body's rhythms with the rhythms of the sea. Imagine the sound of waves reaching a quiet shore. In and out, in and out, each one a little slower than the last. Or perhaps it is your breathing that is slowing. After a while, it becomes difficult to tell the difference. The darkness beneath a forest canopy at night is the kind of darkness your body was made for. Before electric light, the darkness of night was absolute. Your body evolved to produce melatonin in response to this darkness, and to suppress it in response to the bright light of day. The cycle was clean, reliable, and deeply connected to the rhythm of the earth. A forest at night recreates this ancestral darkness. The canopy blocks artificial light from above. The trees absorb and scatter what little light remains, and the darkness that results is not empty or frightening. It is full, rich with the sounds of insects and wind and the quiet rustling of things that are alive but invisible. It is the kind of darkness that your pineal gland recognizes, the kind that says, "No, now is the time to rest." In a natural setting, your body temperature drops gently, the same cooling that invites sleep. Your core body temperature follows a circadian pattern, rising during the day and falling in the evening. This drop in temperature is one of the primary signals that initiates the sleep process. It triggers the release of melatonin and promotes the vasodilation of blood vessels in the hands and feet, allowing heat to escape. Natural environments, particularly forests and areas near water, are typically cooler than urban environments. This gentle ambient cooling supports the body's own thermoregulatory process, making the transition to sleep easier and more natural. Each breath draws a little deeper now, your belly soft and easy. There is no rush. The body knows its way. One weekend of camping is enough to realign your internal clock with the sun. A study by Kenneth Wright at the University of Colorado Boulder sent participants on a weekend camping trip with no access to artificial light. After just 2 days, their melatonin onset shifted earlier by an average of 1.4 hours, realigning their circadian rhythms with the natural light-dark cycle. The researchers found that the participants' internal clocks, which had been delayed by the artificial light of modern life, reset themselves naturally when given access to only sunlight and campfire. 2 days. That is all it took for the body to remember what the sun had always been trying to tell it: when to wake, when to rest, when to let the day go. The sound of wind through trees has a frequency that is now being used as a sleep aid. Green noise, a term used to describe the frequency spectrum of wind moving through natural vegetation, has emerged as an increasingly popular sleep aid. Unlike white noise, which distributes energy equally across all frequencies, green noise emphasizes the mid-range frequencies that dominate natural soundscapes: the rustle of leaves, the sigh of wind through branches, the distant murmur of a forest. These frequencies are gentle on the ear and soothing to the brain. They mask the sharp, irregular sounds of urban environments without introducing new sources of stimulation. Imagine the sound of a forest at night. Not silence, not noise, something in between. A living, breathing sound that fills the air the way darkness fills a room. Completely, quietly, and without effort. The system that nature activates in your body is the very same system that carries you into sleep. The parasympathetic nervous system, which nature so reliably activates, is not merely the system of calm. It is the system of sleep. The transition from wakefulness to sleep requires a shift from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic dominance, from alertness to rest, from vigilance to surrender. Nature does not merely prepare the body for sleep. It initiates the very neurological shift that sleep requires. The slowing heart, the deepening breath, the relaxing muscles, the quieting mind. These are not just signs of calm, they are the preconditions of sleep itself. It is as if nature and sleep are two rooms connected by the same door. And when nature opens that door, sleep is already waiting on the other side. Nature sounds gently cover the city noise that otherwise keeps you from rest. Environmental noise, traffic, ceilings, construction, aircraft, is the leading environmental cause of sleep disruption. It fragments sleep architecture, reduces time in deep sleep, and increases nighttime cortisol. Natural sounds mask this noise, not by being louder, but by being more consistent. The steady rhythm of rain, the continuous murmur of a stream, the layered textures of wind and leaves. These create a stable acoustic environment that prevents sudden noises from reaching the threshold of consciousness. It is like a blanket of sound, not heavy, not intrusive, just enough to cover the sharp edges of the city and let the mind settle into the softness beneath. People who tend a garden sleep better, even when researchers account for the exercise. A study found that regular gardeners reported better sleep quality than non-gardeners, and the association persisted even after controlling for physical activity levels. The gardening itself, the contact with soil, the exposure to sunlight, the visual engagement with green, appeared to contribute independently to sleep quality. Perhaps every muscle in your face has softened now. Smooth as moonlight on water. There is nothing to hold, nothing to guard. Just the quiet surrender of muscles that have been working all day. It is a comforting thought that the simple act of tending something green, of putting your hands in the earth and helping something grow, can help you sleep better at night, as if the earth, in return for your care, offers you the gift of rest. For centuries, the Japanese have practiced moon viewing before sleep, a ritual called tsukimi. Tsukimi is the tradition of gathering outdoors to contemplate the autumn moon. It is not worship. It is not meditation in the formal sense. It is simply the act of looking at the moon, quietly, often with tea and a small offering of rice cakes, and allowing the beauty of the night sky to settle into the body. The practice dates back over 1,000 years and reflects a deep cultural understanding that the natural world, even at night, has something to offer the restless mind. The moon does not ask you to think. It does not ask you to solve. It simply shines. And in its shining, the mind grows still. Imagine the moon tonight. Wherever it is, full or crescent, bright or dim. It has been there every night of your life, and it will be there long after. There is a quietness in that constancy, a reliability that the worried mind can lean against. Firelight and sunset are the kinds of light that tell your brain it is time to produce melatonin. Melatonin production is suppressed by blue-enriched light, the kind produced by screens, fluorescent bulbs, and the midday sun, but it is promoted by warm, dim light, the amber and orange tones of firelight, candlelight, and sunset. For hundreds of thousands of years, the only light available after sunset was firelight. Your pineal gland evolved to interpret this warm, dim glow as a signal that the day was ending and sleep was approaching. Imagine a room lit by a single candle. The light is soft, golden, flickering gently. Everything in the room looks warmer, softer, closer. That is the light your brain was made for at this hour. And in its glow, melatonin begins its quiet work. The trees near your home quietly filter the invisible pollutants that would otherwise disturb your sleep. Urban air contains nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, and ground-level ozone, all of which have been linked to sleep disruption, respiratory irritation, and increased nighttime cortisol. Trees filter these pollutants through their leaves and bark, reducing concentrations in the surrounding air. Research has found that people living on tree-lined streets have better respiratory health and report fewer sleep disturbances than those on streets without trees. The trees are not dramatic in their protection. They do not announce what they are doing. They simply stand between you and the noise of the world, quietly filtering what would otherwise reach your lungs and your sleep. Your resting heartbeat and the rhythm of gentle ocean waves share the same tempo. Your body recognizes both as safe. A resting human heart beats between 60 and 80 times per minute. Gentle ocean waves arrive at the shore at a frequency of roughly 6 to 12 cycles per minute. While the scales are different, the rhythmic, repetitive, low-frequency pattern of both creates a sense of entrainment, a phenomenon in which one rhythm influences another. Your shoulders might be so relaxed now you barely notice them. They have become part of the stillness. Researchers believe that the brain's auditory processing system detects the regularity of wave sounds and uses it as a pacing signal for the body's own rhythms. The heart does not consciously choose to slow, but in the presence of a steady, safe rhythm, it often does. Imagine your heartbeat and the ocean breathing together, not in perfect unison, but in the kind of loose, gentle synchrony that happens when two living things share the same quiet space. Walking barefoot on earth helps your cortisol follow the rhythm it was always meant to follow. Earthing, or grounding, is the practice of making direct, physical contact with the Earth's surface, walking barefoot on grass, soil, or scent. A study by Gailey and Teplitz found that participants who slept grounded, using a conductive sheet connected to the Earth, showed normalized cortisol circadian rhythms, with lower nighttime cortisol and a more pronounced morning peak. The mechanism is still debated. Some researchers suggest that the transfer of free electrons from the Earth's surface has anti-inflammatory effects. Others believe the benefit is primarily psychological and sensory. The feeling of bare feet on cool grass, the connection to something solid and real. Either way, The practice is as old as walking itself, and the body, it seems, still responds to the feeling of earth beneath bare feet, as if remembering something it was never meant to forget. Night-blooming flowers release their sweetest fragrance at the very hour your body prepares for sleep. Jasmine, gardenia, moonflower, evening primrose. These plants open their petals and release their strongest scent after sunset. The timing is not accidental. These flowers are pollinated by nocturnal creatures, moths, bats, and night-flying insects, and they have evolved to advertise at the hour when their pollinators are most active. But for humans, the coincidence is poetic. The sweetest fragrance in the garden arrives at precisely the moment the body is preparing for rest, and research has shown that the scent of jasmine, in particular, improves sleep quality and reduces nighttime restlessness. Imagine a garden at dusk. The jasmine is just beginning to open. The scent is faint at first, then fuller, warmer, sweeter, and as the light fades and the stars appear, the fragrance deepens, as if the night itself is breathing perfume. Lavender, a plant that grows quietly on hillsides, has been shown to deepen slow-wave sleep. Clinical studies have found that inhaling lavender essential oil before bed increases the amount of time spent in slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most restorative stage of the sleep cycle. Participants also reported feeling more refreshed upon waking. Lavender grows wild across the Mediterranean, on dry, rocky hillsides where the sun is hot and the soil is thin. It is not a dramatic plant. It does not tower or spread. It simply grows, quietly, in the places where other plants struggle, and it produces a fragrance that has been used for calm and sleep for thousands of years. The space behind your eyes is wide and still now, like a clear night sky. There is room here for nothing but rest. Your internal clock evolved under open skies. It still expects the gentle rhythm of sunrise and sunset. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny cluster of cells in the hypothalamus, is the master clock of the human body. It receives light signals directly from the retina and uses them to synchronize every cell, organ, and system to the 24-hour cycle of the Earth's rotation. This clock evolved under natural light, the gradual brightening of dawn, the intense blue of midday, the warm dimming of dusk, and the total darkness of night. It was never designed for the abrupt on-off of electric light or the constant blue glow of screens. When your clock receives the signals it expects, sunrise in the morning, darkness at night, it runs smoothly. Sleep comes easily. Waking is natural. The body moves through its cycles with the quiet confidence of a river that knows its course. Stargazing lowers your blood pressure. The vastness of the sky triggers a calming kind of awe. Researchers studying the physiological effects of awe have found that contemplating vast natural phenomena, the night sky, the Milky Way, a meteor shower, produces measurable reductions in blood pressure, heart rate, and cortisol. The mechanism appears to involve a shift in self-referential processing. When you look at the stars, the brain's focus moves outward, away from personal concerns and toward the immensity of the universe. This shift reduces the activity of the default mode network, the same network that drives rumination and worry. Imagine lying on your back in an open field. Above you, the sky, is filled with stars. More than you can count, more than you can name, and in that vastness, your worries grow smaller, not because they are solved, but because they are held in a context so large that they no longer seem to matter quite as much. For most of human history, people slept with the sky above them. Sleeping indoors is the invention. Anthropological evidence suggests that for the vast majority of human existence, sleep occurred outdoors or in open shelters, under the stars, beside dying fires, surrounded by the sounds of the natural world. Enclosed sleeping chambers are a relatively modern development and fully insulated. Light-proof bedrooms are newer still. Your body's sleep architecture, the cycling through light sleep, deep sleep, and dreaming, evolved in this open-air context. The sounds of nature, the cooling of the night air, the gradual dimming of firelight, these were the cues that shaped your sleep system. It is a humbling thought that the bedroom, so familiar and so necessary, is an invention your body is still learning to adapt to, and that somewhere deep in the circuitry, the body still expects to hear the wind and the insects and the quiet breathing of the earth, the gentle rocking of a hammock, like the sway of branches, helps people fall asleep faster. A study by Lawrence Bayer and colleagues found that participants who lay in a gently rocking bed fell asleep faster and spent more time in deep sleep than those who lay on a stationary bed. The rocking also increased sleep spindles, brief bursts of brain activity associated with memory consolidation and resistance to noise disruption. The rhythm of the rocking was slow and gentle, similar to the sway of a tree branch in a light breeze. The researchers suggested that the vestibular system, the body's balance and motion sensor, responds to this rhythm by promoting the transition to sleep. Imagine a hammock strung between two old trees. The evening is warm, the breeze is light, and the hammock sways, just barely, just enough to feel, back and forth, like the trees themselves, rocking you gently toward rest. As your body settles toward sleep, your breathing naturally takes on the rhythm of a gentle breeze. During the transition from wakefulness to sleep, respiratory rate slows and becomes more regular. The diaphragm relaxes into a deeper, more rhythmic pattern, and the breath becomes quieter, softer, less effortful. Your hands have gone quiet now. Varm is still, like stones beside a sleeping river. They have done everything they needed to do today. This slowing of the breath mirrors the rhythm of a gentle wind, steady, cyclical, unhurried. It is as if the body, in preparing for sleep, returns to a rhythm it learned from the natural world, a rhythm of ease, of release, of letting go. And perhaps your breath is already there, already slow, already soft, already moving with the quiet patience of a breeze that has nowhere to be and all the time in the world. The Earth itself pulses at 7.83 Hertz, the same frequency as the brain waves of drowsiness, as if the planet has been humming you to sleep all along. The Schumann resonance is a set of electromagnetic frequencies generated by lightning activity in the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. The fundamental frequency is 7.83 Hertz, which falls within the range of human theta brainwaves. The waves associated with drowsiness, light, sleep, and the threshold between waking and dreaming. Whether or not the human brain directly detects the Schumann resonance is still debated, but the coincidence is striking. The planet itself vibrates at the frequency of falling asleep, as if the Earth, from the very beginning, has been quietly humming a lullaby. Too low to hear, but perhaps not too low to feel. And so the final cluster of this evening's journey comes to rest. 25 quiet truths about where sleep and nature meet, about the rhythms your body was made to follow, and the gentle invitation that the natural world extends to you each night. And so tonight, perhaps you can rest with one quiet, knowing that every tree, every river, every star that has ever shone above you is part of the same gentle world that made your body, and that body has always known how to find its way back to stillness, like a river returning, at last, to the sea. None of this needs to stay with you. It was never meant to be memorized or studied. It was only ever meant to drift over you. Softly, the way leaves fall. Perhaps your whole body has settled now, heavier than when we began. Warm, quiet, like the earth after a long, soft rain. Wherever you are tonight, may the trees hold your worries for a while. May the rivers carry them gently away. And may your sleep be as deep and as kind as the forest that is always waiting for you. Sleep well,